The first question really that we have is kind of multiple parts, classic academic question here. So what was your entry point into studying place, and what drew you to it? Why did you feel the need or the compulsion to quote, search for reasons to care about my home landscape? You write in Not Just Any Land how your intention was to bear witness of the beginning of one writer's conscious commitment to place. So much contemporary environmental writing focuses on those who are already inside commitment and not enough on those who are struggling to find the door. Finding the door is an often awkward, contradictory, and painful process, but also humorous, inspiring, and transformative. There's something that compels one to know more about where you live. So what does this process look for you, and what can you say to the generation of young people who haven't been exposed to these ideas before?
Great question. The answer is sort of found in all of my books, across those 4 books, and each one kind of bears witness to a different step in the process. I guess it begins with family, for me. I'm the 6th generation to live in Western Iowa in my family. So my kids are the 7th generation. And I grew up with that sense of connection with place, that deep kind of almost genetic connection with place. But I didn't think of it as a kind of determining factor in where I was going to live or where I was going to go. I didn't appreciate it. And it certainly wasn't attached in any meaningful way to an understanding of prairie or prairie ecology. In the book Man Killed by Pheasant, I talk about various natural areas that were important to me, but none of them really had to do with that aspect of things. And none of it was enough to make me want to stay here after I graduated from college. And that was the whole plan, to get out. I married a woman from Idaho. I was married over 25 years or something. But that was with a plan to go to, she was from the mountains, and they were beautiful, and that was kind of the promise that we would end up settling there. And I was all for it. It was a sort of traditional, naturally beautiful place. And then when I was in graduate school and we were living in a small town of Belle Plaine, the floods happened, 93, and I kind of awoke to, because these ditches and everything that was normally plowed down or burned or cut down erupted in all this natural beauty, and full of these wildflowers and grasses. I had no idea what they were, and I'm running around the ditches with my identification guides, and my neighbors think I'm very strange. But something happened there, and just that little bit of exposure to what remains of wildness in Iowa, that kind of awoke in me a desire to know more. And so when the floods left, I longed to kind of chase after that wildness, and that's what I did. I went on a journey out across the region, camping and visiting, and I hate camping, by the way, so this was a big deal for me. In some of the largest remaining grasslands in the area, and I also talked with writers, because that was another big part of my decision. I was interested in writing about place and nature, but I thought it was going to be about other places. So I interviewed people that were sort of like what you're doing now, who were not only writing about the Midwest and the Great Plains, but actually committed to stay here, which was sort of a radical act on the part of writers, given the canon of Midwest writing. Most of those we think of as Midwestern writers, like Cather, Henry Garland, Twain, they all lived elsewhere, right? They grew up here and then they moved. I was interested in a different kind of story, a different kind of literature. So there was that literary connection to those writers, but there was also that family connection, which I also further researched during that trip. So all 3 of those things, going out, encountering prairie, digging deeper into the literature of my region and connecting with those writers, and further appreciating and connecting with that family history. And the end result was I engaged, in 1995, participated in my first act of prairie restoration associated with what's now Neil Smith National Wildlife Refuge here near Des Moines, and then committed myself basically to living here and writing about that kinship place. So that's when it became conscious, but I think it goes deeper than that, and that's kind of what Man Killed by Pheasant is about, is tracing those sources back into childhood even. I think the loss of my brother, who was a stillbirth when I was 7 years old, deeply influenced, in very unconscious ways, maybe my connection to the prairie, because when I was 7 and that loss took place, there was that sense of looking around the world for what isn't there, for something that was seemingly dead and trying to restore it, wanting to resurrect it. That kind of magical realism or magical thinking that children engage in. I sometimes wonder if that influenced my love of prairie later on. Something also seemingly lost, seemingly beyond the reach of any kind of restoration, and then trying to recover it in one way or another. I think our connection to particular landscapes can be that deep sometimes. It's a very long answer.
It was a very long question.